Beyond your wildest dreams comes Marilyn.
I wish hard enough
To wish upon a star.
it will belong to me alone, a single dream.
And to leave you feeling like you've never felt before. Marilyn. Everyone talked about her. And now everyone's talking about the musical. With all the dazzling magic. To match the legend that is Marilyn. Marilyn, an American Fable, and a spectacular Broadway musical.
A single dream, one that I can call my very own.
Beyond your wildest dreams comes Marilyn.
Maybe if I wish hard enough
To wish upon a star.
it will belong to me alone, a single dream.
And to leave you feeling like you've never felt before. Marilyn, an American Fable. Marilyn. Everyone talked about her. And now everyone's talking about the musical. With all the dazzling magic. To match the legend that is Marilyn. Marilyn, an American Fable, and a spectacular Broadway musical.
A single dream, one that I can call my very own.
Beyond your wildest dreams comes Marilyn.
Maybe if I wish hard enough
To wish upon a star.
it will belong to me alone, a single dream.
And to leave you feeling like you've never felt before. Marilyn, an American Fable.
I failed already. I was on mute. Are you on mute?
We're here!
We're here! Oh my
Hello,
goodness.
everyone, and welcome to my favorite flop, After the Bows. I am Kristina Miller-Weston.
And I'm Bobby Traversa, and we are the hosts of the brand new, just launched a week ago podcast, My Favorite Flop. Oh, wait.
Right there. Right there.
Okay, that's the one. I don't know how cameras work.
And
Oh my
you can
goodness.
find it everywhere. It's on all the streaming platforms, wherever you find your podcast.
All of them. We're Apple, Spotify.
All
We
the
even
things.
got on Stitcher today, brand new, which is super exciting. Yes,
Woohoo!
we did it.
Very exciting. This is what we look like in real life, my friends. And our first episode launched last Tuesday, and it was warmly received.
I would say a little bit better than warmly. I think people kind of loved it.
Loved it.
Loved it. It was so good. And and it was all about 1983's Marilyn-an American Fable, which we have been posting about on social all week.
I hope you've been watching those videos because they are priceless. And this week we are kicking off our conversation series, a continuation of the conversation, if you know what I mean.
Right.
This is our after show drinks at Sardi's.
Upstairs, the bar upstairs. where
Sure,
everybody-
corner booth. And each Tuesday following our new episode airing, we are going to have a conversation with maybe a cast member, maybe a crew member, maybe someone from the creative team, maybe super fans of the show. Who knows?
If we can't find anybody, it might be with our moms
Or
or
pets.
I mean, it might be you. We might just pull you on. But luckily, we've had some people reach out, including...
This week, we're kicking it off with an original cast member from Marilyn, an American Fable.
An American Fable.
All right, everybody welcome Cortés Alexander! Hello and welcome. We're so excited that you reached out and decided to come and share some stories with us.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so tell us a little about yourself. Tell us how you came to be on After the Bows.
Well, I saw the post last week on Facebook about Marilyn, and I just DM'd you and thought, gee, I was actually in that show. If anybody cares, and the rest is history. Here I am.
So tell us a little bit about your background, how you came to even be in Maryland.
Well, let's see. This is a long, long time ago. The way it happened for me was I was just starting to dance. And it was at the time, it was the show that everybody wanted to be in. Everyone in New York was trying to get an audition for this show, and months and months and months. And it was at the time really like the biggest deal. And a friend of mine from class got an audition, and I was playing piano at the time for other people's auditions. Like I would arrange songs for them and find material and kind of do like vocal coaching for them.
Sure.
And he was really more of a dancer, not so much of a singer, but a really, really good dancer. And he said, will you play my audition? And I said, absolutely. Let's do an arrangement of Goodbye, Norma Jean. So we did a little bit of that. And we went in the room. I will not ever forget. It was at the Minskoff Rehearsal Studios on the 4th floor, this big, gigantic rehearsal room. And the big, like really old school, like the big, long table with like 9 people behind it. And he went in, and I went in behind him with his music and sat at the piano and, you know, politely ushered the accompanist away. He's our own piano guy. And he did his thing, and they said, thank you very much. And that was it. So as I'm picking up the music and walking out, my friend walked out first, and I was walking out. And just as I was about to go out the door, they said, excuse me, piano accompanist guy, can you turn around? And I said, I turned around, and they said, can you sing? And I said, yeah, I can. I mean, I at that time I was so young. I was singing, but I wasn't like really serious about it. I was sort of because it was fun, and I had already done a pilot that's another thing. We should do this show, my favorite failed TV pilot, because I've got a good one. I had just done this pilot where I played Nicolas Cage's best friend.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And anyway, it didn't go. But so I was more gearing toward more like a TV career rather than a theater career.
Sure.
But they turned around and they said, can you sing? And I said, yeah. So they said, would you mind staying and just looking this over? So they gave me the sheet music to So Beyond, which was it was sort of like the big 11 o'clock number that Willie Falk sang at the end. This big, huge, beautiful song. And as I was scanning it, I just thought, first of all, it's in the key of C, and it had G's and A flats in it, which was way, way, way out of my range. And I said, I can sing this, but you have to lower it 2 whole steps because I can't do it in this key. So if your piano guy can play it in A flat, he couldn't do it, but I was able to do it. So I just went to the piano. And
you played for yourself?
I played it for myself.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
I just played it for myself, and that was it. And then they said, they didn't even ask me if I could dance or anything. They just said thank you. And then I walked out of the thing, and my friend was like, "What did they do? What happened? What happened?" I was like, "They just made me sing this song and I played it at the piano, and that was it." And this was on a Friday, and on Monday they called and they said, "You got a part."
Oh my God.
And I was like, what? And I had friends of mine that had like 4 and 5 callbacks, you know, over and over and over to try
right
to do
place, right time, man.
It was really just like the dumbest. Like I backed into this thing completely with no expectations at all, and they wrote a really sweet little part for me.
I love that so much.
So
Which
you had mentioned.
We'll get to that later.
No, so you had mentioned that this was kind of the it show at the time. You guys had press and rehearsal.
The most expensive show ever produced at that point.
Oh, wow. And you guys had press and rehearsals. There was like a nationwide search for who would play Marilyn. Like, what was that like? I mean, you're in this Broadway show now, and it's not just like, oh, a Broadway show rehearsing down at Ripley Greer. You're rehearsing at the Minskoff, and there's news cameras in rehearsal. Like, it's a big deal.
Sure. Well, the thing I remember now is at the time I had just graduated because my parents were like, if you're not going to go to college, you have to learn a trade. So I went to haircutting school. And the day that I was supposed to take this, I graduated, but the day I was supposed to take the state boards was the day of the first rehearsal of Marilyn. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to be a hair cutter. I'm going to be on Broadway.
Jazz hands and all.
That's right. But yeah, at the time, Geraldine Pichelle, who was the first girl cast, who I'm still friends with, by the way.
Oh, cool.
Are you? Oh, I love that.
Okay, I'll tell you about that in a second. But Jerry was the greatest, and she was so wonderful, and really, she did. First of all, she did all the backers auditions. She got the show. She basically got the show made.
Yeah.
And then with all of the input and all that stuff, they ousted her and they brought in Allison, as you know. But yes, to be rehearsing and having cameras come in and Entertainment Tonight and people coming in and shooting stills all the time, it was sort of well, you know, when I was on the road with Liza, it was the same thing. I mean, people would come in all the time and, you know, shoot and film, and you just have to sort of be ready for it. But at the time, as my first time out there, it was definitely, I didn't really have the feeling of, I didn't have the knowledge of, this is not normal. I just thought this is how it is. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But now, thousands of years later, I realize how really, truly not normal it was. Especially, especially because not just like in the process of when things were going bad and people were getting fired and we were getting rewrites, we would be writing scenery out and we would say, "Did you get the new pages?" What? Just kidding. Open. There we go. And you know, it would be like that. That's exactly what it was. Like,
oh my gosh, how stressful.
It really was. I mean, new and choreographically too, like new staging and new dancing and new numbers. You know, as the dancer, you know, you have numbers on stage and you'd be like, you have to stay on your number, otherwise the whole thing is bad. So like, am I on 3 or on mine 2? And it doesn't sound like much, but when you're looking at it, if you're on 3 and not on 2 and you're supposed to be on 2, it looks terrible.
Look, man, I did Jersey Boys. If your left toe isn't on the right number, they know.
That's exactly right. And when you're in a line, it really, really shows. And I learned that the hard way. But then they brought in Allison, who she had like 35 callbacks over the period of like 9 months for this thing. And then they called her to bring her back in again after they had let go of Jerry. And Allison basically was like, "No, actually, you've seen everything I can do upside down and sideways. And if you want to give me the part, great. And if you don't, I'll see you when I see you." And they were like, now the clock is ticking. And they were like, okay. You know, we're just going to make it work. Wow. And she did the whole thing in a week and a half, which was unbelievable. Like, unbelievable. I didn't anything like it. She was like a machine. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, there's a picture I found, I think it was in the New York Times, and it's her on a rehearsal room with the script on the floor and her hands in her hair, just like freaking out. Because, like you said, she had a week and a half. Oh my gosh. That's
how
brilliant that is.
That is so,
I can't imagine the stress that she was under. I mean, we as all the other people were under a ton of stress, but she, like, I don't know how she didn't have a nervous breakdown, but she did an incredible Herculean thing. It was like you know, as a performer, you have that nightmare of you going out on stage and you don't know why you're there or how you're there, and you just are like, I don't know my lines, I don't know my choreography. What am I doing here? Who are all of you? She had every reason to have that dream, and just was completely amazing.
I love it. So you had a ton of people in the show that actually were a big deal. Like Jodie Benson was in the.
I saw her in the commercial. I forgot about it. My mom
was in the ensemble, and I was like, "What? You went on to play the Little Mermaid. What you doing?"
Yeah, she was Jodie Maserati then, and my name was Kevin then at the time, which was probably why if you have an old playbill, you couldn't find.
You are Kevin. I knew it. I was like, okay, who is he? because I couldn't find your name, and I was like, it's Kevin Court, right?
Yeah. Because at that time,
there you go.
At that time, you know, if your first name was Cortés, you might as well just, you know, you're going to be like Juan Valdez, you know. And I was definitely not that type, so I had to. My manager, my agent at the time said, we got to come up with something less alienating.
Kevin.
Interesting. Isn't that funny how tables have turned?
I know, right? I'm so happy now because I hated it then. I never felt like I was myself even then, but now I'm so happy now. But
that's great.
Good.
But yeah, Marilyn was, Oh, this was, I was going to tell you, when you asked about if I'm still friends, the girl that played Luella Parsons, Melissa Bailey, she's still my very, very good friend. As a matter of fact, we had lost touch since the show closed until about 7 years ago. I was playing tennis at the Toluca Lake Tennis Club.
Oh, nice.
And I saw her walking toward me, and I was like, oh my God, you, like decades later. And at that time, I was like, what are you doing? Are you singing? Are you acting? And she was like, no, I'm just doing corporate. She was totally out of the game. And I thought, my God, because I remember what a beautiful voice she had. And I was like, what a shame, that people who have this talent, just like, sometimes you just have to, like, you've got to figure out a way to just make your life work. And you have to give up the thing you love to do. Anyway, I said, listen, I'm thinking about doing a club act. You want to sing with me, like do backups and oohs and ahs and stuff like that? And she said, sure, I would love that. And so I did. I've done like 2 or 3 shows a year with her singing with me. So it's been great.
I love that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, the pandemic has changed everything, hasn't it, for actors?
You're not kidding. It's well, especially now. I mean, I'm not responding well to it at all. I hate to say. I just, I have friends of mine that they're getting so creative and so like into it and all that stuff. It's just completely made me just go into my shell.
I understand. This is my creative outlet now.
That's good. See,
That's why we made a podcast.
That's why we made it.
Yeah, right. Everybody's houses now look like MGM.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
The lights and microphones and.
Oh man.
Green
So
screens.
back to Marilyn. We'll come back to COVID. Back to Marilyn. Obviously, losing your leading lady and your director like 10 days out is highly traumatic. And then, like you said, you're on these automated pieces, and you're like, "Do you have the new sides? I don't have the new sides." Right? So what was of that time? What was the thing that you remember the most? That was your favorite moment?
Okay, I just thought of 2. One of the things, it's not my favorite moment, but it's a moment that I'll never forget. And here's the reason. What we previewed, I think we previewed like maybe 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks. We seemed to preview for a long time because they were doing a lot of changes. And it was there was an airplane. I mean, there were huge set pieces that wouldn't travel well. So we had to preview in town. But what I remember was in previews, standing ovations and people loving it and screaming for it and just loving it. And it's so sold out every single night. Now it's opening night, and we're at the thing, and everybody's waiting up late to get the reviews, and they're all terrible. And the next day, now it was the Minskoff Theater. It's a big theater. It's like 1,600 seats or something like that. The next day, looking out at the house, and there's 250 people in the house.
Oh no!
It literally went from completely sold out to the next day, just like a smattering. I couldn't believe it. It blew my mind that the press had such influence.
Right.
Yeah, and especially
I didn't realize how hard we worked on this. How could you say such mean things and be so horrible?
No, back in the 80s specifically too, I feel like, like Frank Rich, not to speak ill of him, but at the New York Times, if he wrote a bad review, I mean, it could kill a show.
Oh, he was
dead overnight.
Frank Rich, I had a singing group 1,000 years ago called the Tonics, and we did a benefit for Stephen Sondheim at Carnegie Hall.
Wow.
It was a big wow. That's another story, but we followed Patti LuPone singing "Being Alive," and you can imagine like the biggest, gigantic song ever. And then the 4 of us come out and sing. We did an arrangement that I had put together of "Good Thing Going" with company. You can see it on YouTube now, and it went over huge. But Frank Rich said, "The Tonics, though attractive, tastefully mangled Sondheim's 'Good Thing Going,'" and I was like, "Oh man, you can't even give it up."
No.
Yeah, tastefully mangled.
Wow.
My, yeah.
So,
wielding a sword with your pen. Good grief.
exactly, right? Exactly. But back to Marilyn. My other memory that I had was one of my oh God, it might have been, I think it was when I knew that the ship was going down and everybody had gone out and everyone got completely drunk and it was terrible. Everybody, like, we just stayed out so late. I think it was a Friday because matinee was on Saturday. That's what it was. And we all went out drinking and everybody was hungover and stayed out late. And I remember waking up at 1:15 on Saturday and was like, oh my God, half an hour. It's going to be half hour and 15 minutes. And I lived in the West Village at the time, and like jumping out of bed with a hangover and running to the theater and barely making it. I don't even think I showered, like barely making it in to sign in. Now, my first entrance at this point, you'll appreciate this, Kristina. My first entrance was, it was a scene where I had to be a dancing surgeon. Because my cute little part that they wrote for me had just been whittled away to nothing. But now I had to come out in scrubs with a surgical mask on, with a scalpel and a hand mirror, because it's the scene where Marilyn's getting all plastic surgery and it's going to be her big reveal, right?
Yes.
But my first entrance was all the way from stage right, chaîné turns. Really fast ones, and then I had the other girl had to do them opposite coming in from stage right. So we would go, and then we would meet right in the middle, right, like that with our things, and then go back to cover her up. Now, when you're doing chaîné turns, it's to the music, really fast, right? And I remember seeing my line like going, just with a hangover on the Minskoff, at the Minskoff, the biggest stage in the world, 9 zillion chaîné turns, holding props. Like I couldn't, I was just like, it was horrible. It was like being on a ship in a storm.
Oh my God. You know, I did something similar. I did nice work at Ogunquit, and there's an entire number where like all of us jump out of a bathtub with bubbles, right? And we have to do chaîné turns downstairs. Now I was not hungover. I'm just a klutz, and I fell doing my steps off the stairs and the bubble that is really a beach ball, and it goes into the audience, and I don't know what to do except be like, can I have it back?
Oh my God. You had to do the stairs?
Yeah, it was a mess. It was dangerous. Oh, it was very funny.
Scary. Okay, well, I have to pause for a second because Melissa is watching, Melissa Bailey, and she says it's been 10 years that you guys have been singing together again.
She's correcting me.
And she is requesting that you tell the bubble story in regards to Marilyn. Now, we posted this on social media today. I posted the entire clip of Miss Bubbles, but go ahead, because this was like if you know Carrie the musical, my poster on the wall, this was like the Out for Blood moment of Marilyn, right? Like everyone had to talk about these pink overalls and the kick line and Miss Bubbles. So go ahead.
Miss Bailey, I could kill you. Yeah, it was like, I think it was like the finale or something like that, and it was a number that they had put in. I think it was put in for Allison at the end. We were plumbers, and we wore these pink satin overalls with no shirts, and we had lucite plungers, and we did a kick line, basically. We literally, you step together, step together, step together, back, step together, step, like a real Rockettes kick line. They call her Miss with a pullback and everything. Bubbles.
Well, and like, so in the video I posted today, it sounds like you guys got an ovation for that too. It sounds like the audience went wild for Miss Bubbles.
Everybody loves the key change and the pullback. I mean, you could do it to Mary Had a Little Lamb and get them on your feet.
Well, you don't see this. Melissa just wrote, "I love you, honey." So she mentioned with the plungers. So yes, Melissa's watching. Hi, Melissa.
She was Luella Parsons. She was with Mary Testa.
Right.
Mary Testa played Hannah Hopper, and Melissa played Luella, and they had a number that stopped the show called Gossip. It was almost like, if you could imagine. Yeah, how do you know that?
I watched an entire bootleg. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Anyway, they were adorable in that.
I love Mary Testa. She is one of my favorites.
She's great.
I mean, you guys had so many, like all of you, like in that cast, like you said, it was a big deal. So they cast a really ridiculously talented group of people in this thing.
So much talent
Yeah.
in that room.
Okay. Well, thinking back on the show, is there anything like regarding the show itself that whether it stayed in the show or whether it cut, something that you were like, this was a really special like moment in Marilyn that you thought really worked well? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, a moment in the show that worked well. Here's what my thought about the whole thing was the show to me, it was just so unfocused. It had so many different elements to it that it needed to be reined in, and it was just overwritten and overconceived.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I loved, Peggy Blue, I mean, she can do no wrong. I don't know. Did you, were you able to, was the song that she sang in the video that you have? She sang a song called, what was it called? A Special Man. It was called A Special Man.
No, I think it was cut by this point.
Oh, well, that stopped the show.
Oh,
it was sort of like Jennifer Holliday coming in the middle and doing a thing and then leaving. It was like that big, gigantic thing. A Special Man. And it was like in a little cafe. And, those three, for people that don't know, there were three characters in there called Destiny. And they were sort of they were the people that were sort of her inner turmoil and her thoughts. And they foresee the future and like her inner voice. And they would sing and dance and haunt her dreams and all that kind of stuff. And Peggy Blue was one of them and sang this song called A Special Man in this sort of nightclub kind of boîte cabaret sort of setting.
I don't think I've heard that one. Melissa's saying it was cut. So
it was cut.
I'm the only one seeing Melissa's conversation right here.
No,
I need to find it.
I love Mary. So
yeah. Well, Mary was great. Yeah,
Oh,
Mary was wonderful. I'm trying to think if there were any other crazy things that I remember about that show. I remember that when they cut my part, I remember going on the on the payphone in the lobby of the Minskoff Theater and crying. I called Kenny because they had let Kenny go. And then we tried to go without Kenny for a couple of days. And then I saw that they had cut my part to basically nothing. And I remember calling him saying, they cut my part. And I was completely crying. And he was so sad for me. But then Kenny was great because Kenny then hired me a zillion times after that.
Oh, good.
That's amazing. So you guys are still friends.
I haven't seen him in years, but he cast me. Remember that video, Let's Hear It for the Boy?
Oh, yeah.
I'm the boy that dances on the piano in that.
Are
video.
you really?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So there's that. And then I did, I was one of the guys on the USS, what do you call it, in Turn Back Time with Cher. And I did, what else did I do with Kenny? I did a series called the Motown Review with Smokey Robinson.
Okay.
Ooh,
It was fun.
that sounds like fun.
But Kenny he's always been a real ally and just a great, he loves talent.
Melissa says that you two were bound and determined to not be in the chorus. And so you kept improving lines.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
understand. I understand that line.
It got to be that we were all off our leash. Once we realized that the director was gone, we were all holding on to, and that there was no captain anymore. We were all left to our own devices, and that was just a big ham sandwich. Do you know what I mean? You couldn't get downstage far enough.
Right.
You know what I mean? We were just off our leashes, just doing anything we could just to be wrong.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a curious question because I don't know the answer to this, and you might. I know that it ended up with a lot of people just being called studio head or director or agent without any names or anything. That's what's in the opening night playbill. Did it start out that way? Like in Merrily We Roll Along, they all had names, and then by opening night, it was the same thing: studio head, director, friend, pal. Did people have names and real characters when you guys went into it? And then
I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't think so.
Okay. All right.
I know there was Joe. I know there's Jimmy, George Dvorsky, who is still I'm friends with. So I think the main people, the people that I think people would recognize in the pop culture version of Marilyn, those people are still had their names.
Okay.
Got it. So at what point, you've talked about how when you all realized that the ship was sinking, You
Yeah.
just went out and were like, we just have to have it out, right? Like, that was it. And I get it. I've been through a couple of workshops of shows, and there does come that point. But at any point, did they give you like official notice? Was it like you just came in one day and they're like, we're closing tomorrow, bye?
I think that was pretty much how it was. Very unceremonious.
Oh geez.
Yeah, it was just like wah, wah, wah. Just,
Oh man.
because I remember like being in the taxis and seeing the commercials in the cabs and all that kind of stuff. Like it was in the, on the buses. It was a big embarrassment.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. So do you think that Marilyn could ever be revived, or is it just better lost to the history books?
I think it's definitely better lost to history. I think if you took the script now and you had somebody who could really cut and really make, and it also was long. I mean, it was a long night.
Okay.
Oh,
With
okay.
all of those concepts and things like that. It's a great story to tell. It's a great story to tell. But I think bigger is not always better when it's such a big story. Do you know what I mean? The scope of the story can speak for itself. It doesn't need to be made even more. That's what I think.
So
Right.
Melissa's blowing our mind. She just wrote, they tried to revive it. And do you know anything about that?
Do I know? I don't think so. What is she talking about?
I don't know. I have to wait until she writes her next message. But until she does, I mean, Marilyn it was really, I think in Australia, because we're the original producers.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think I might have heard something about that.
Okay. Maybe. I mean, it might actually be really popular there. I mean, I feel like Australians would be super into Marilyn.
Producers
super
finally make their money back 80
informing,
years later.
What was that?
Producers finally make their money back 80 years later.
Well, $3 million's nothing now. I mean, that's the cheapest musical you can produce on Broadway today. But back then, that was, like you said, most expensive one. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so Marilyn really kind of got forgotten about, except for like weird people like me who find this stuff somehow until 2012 when NBC made Smash. And in the pilot episode, obviously, they're writing a Marilyn musical, and they specifically reference your guys' production for a second, before they move on. Was that kind of cool? Because I think I've seen stuff online from other people who were in the cast. I know Geraldine started posting on Broadway World back in 2012 when Smash was kind of going on. Was that kind of cool that there was this renewed interest?
Yeah, it was weird. It was kind of strange. I remember when I know Mark Shaman very well, so I texted him and I'm like, you don't realize, but you are writing about my very young life right now, and I'm sitting back enjoying every minute of it. So that was kind of fun.
That is really cool.
He would be the one to write it. I mean, if they ever did try and revive it or do another story, he'd be the one to do it.
Right. Well, I think he's
like whatever Bombshell is. I would like to know what that show is.
I know. They say it's happening. Was supposed to happen this year, apparently, but then COVID. So
really?
I don't know. I had read something press last January, I think, that was like, 2021.
And then, I mean, Mark's working on the new Sugar, aka Some Like It Hot, as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're doing 2 Maryland properties, which is kind of crazy.
He's all fancy over there.
He's very fancy now. Yes.
So so okay. Marilyn aside, we've talked a lot about Marilyn. You've done a lot of other cool stuff, and you brought up Mark Shaman. I know you've worked with Bet, and that's probably, is that where the connection is?
No.
Okay, great.
No, the thing I did with Mark, I wish I could remember what it was, but it was a very big benefit at the Gershwin Theater with, let me see, it was a bunch of people. Allison Janney was in it, a bunch of people. It was a benefit for I don't know if it was Broadway Cares maybe or something like that. But it was, what I remember about that was the stage at the Gershwin Theater, it's what I remember thinking was there's so many tracks that there's not a flat surface anywhere. Because
really?
There's so much scenery that goes in and out. There's maybe 4 inches of flat space. There's tracks, the whole entire thing. It looks like straight.
Wow.
It's wild.
I know. Also worked with one of my heroes.
Which one, Mark? You said Mark?
No, Liza with the Z.
Oh, Liza, yeah.
Liza is my hero.
Is she?
Oh yeah. No, one of the ways I met Bobby was because he heard me belt and then he was like, so you need to do every Liza show ever written. Thank you very much. And I was like, right, okay. And I went and watched everything she'd ever done. I was like, oh, I love her. I love her so much.
She's amazing. Yeah, that's like being shot out of a cannon.
Oh, I bet.
I mean, I remember my very first show with her at Foxwoods, and I remember thinking I've never been this nervous ever to go on stage in my entire life. And I thought I remember making all kinds of irrational promises to God. Just get me through this next 15 minutes, and I'll do anything you say. I promise I'll be good. And all this stuff. And I remember she grabbed my face right before we were about to go out, and she said, "Honey, take no prisoners and fuck the wounded." And out she went. Out we went.
Oh my
That
goodness.
was like the best pre-show,
That
like
was it.
exciting thing to
It
say.
really
I mean, I
was.
know most shows I've done, you do like circle time and stuff like that just to connect with your cast, but that by far is my favorite. I'm going to do that the next time I do a show.
And then you're out there with that energy, and you're not even aware of. It was like this every show. You're not even aware that there's an audience because
Right.
it's just that little world. You know what I mean? It's just the four of you. At the time, I had a trio that she had put together, or I put together, called the Cortés Alexander Trio, and she wanted three guys to back her and to sort of travel with her and support her and sing with her. She saw me singing in a little club in New York with my other group, and she kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and we ended up being friends. So
I love that so much.
That's so crazy. So you were in Liza's at the Palace. Were you the ones who did the Kay Thompson section?
Yeah.
Was that? So I didn't get to see it live, but it's one of my favorite things to watch on DVD. Liza does the first act, and it's Liza, and you're like, okay, Liza's doing her old stuff. But the minute you guys, all of you, hit that Kay Thompson, I'm like, wait, I didn't know Liza still had this in her, because she is like a train, and she heads out of the station and she doesn't stop. That second act of Liza's at the Palace is breathtaking.
Oh, Bobby, thank you.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh.
Thank you. It was
so good.
It was a real it was a fun experience, and it was a hard experience, and it wore me out in a lot of different ways. But the music was so great. That's what I loved about it, the music. And I knew Kay toward the end of her life.
Yeah.
She lived with Liza, and Kay was in her 90s and still sharp as a tack.
Right.
And, funny and vibrant and amazing. We talk about people who have stories. I mean, if you ever saw Funny Face, I mean, that's who she was. She was like that.
Right. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
I think we've jumped around a little bit, but so how did you get from Maryland to, I mean, doing your trio, doing your stuff, working with Liza,
Working with Elton John. Let's talk about it.
Okay. Let me see if I can back into that.
Sorry. We're all over the place.
What happened was I had a vocal trio called the Tonics. We met out here in Los Angeles. We were singing at an open mic night, and we just decided to be a group. I'm really going to abbreviate it because it could go on for the rest of your life. One of the guys got a job on a soap opera, which shot in New York. He's there for 2 or 3 months. He says, "Guys, come to New York and let's do shows. I'm getting some traction with the soap people, and it might be kind of fun." Okay, so we go to New York. We go on Thursday night. We go down to this little club in the West Village called 88's. We sing a couple of things. The owner of the club says, "I want to give you guys shows to do, but I don't have anything available until 6 months from now." But and I'm like, "We're not even going to be together in 6 months because we're not even a group. We're just 4 freaks that love to sing together. We're 4 people. That's it." So it's like, "Okay, well, listen, I can give you midnight on Monday night." Great, we'll take it. Let's do it. So we said yes. He gave us 4 Monday nights. So now we're like singing in the streets, trying to get people to come because nobody knows who we are except for my friend who was on the soap opera.
Right.
And, we met on that first night we were there, that first Thursday, we met Daisy Prince, who's the daughter of Hal Prince. And she loved us. And she said, "Listen, I'm going to introduce you to all the people that you need to know because I think you guys are so much fun." And I said, well, listen, Daisy, we need a piano player because we have now shows in like 2 weeks and we don't have a piano player. She goes, I think I have somebody. He just got out of music school. And it was Jason Robert Brown.
I was about to say.
What?
Jason
Yeah.
Robert Brown. Yeah.
So he was our musical director for like 5 years.
That is absurd.
I know, it's crazy, right? And then the following, so now we're doing our shows, and our shows are starting to do well. We're like, first we want to get like at least 40 people in this room so that we can make enough money to pay Jason his $75. Then the second week we're almost selling it out. Then the third week we sold it out. The fourth week we're sold out with a waiting list. Now the owner of the club says, I'm going to bump, Julie Wilson or somebody like that Friday at 8 and put you guys in. Okay, good. So now we've got the big spot Friday at 8. So now the New York Times, the Post, and the Daily News come, and they all give us these huge rave reviews.
Wow.
And then Liza comes down, and then Liza's like, I need to see what all this noise is about. And the night that she came, she how did it happen? She said, are you the guy that does the vocal arrangements? And I said, yeah. And she said, can I have your phone number? And I said, sure. So
Just casual.
I'm like, whatever. It's crazy, right? It's 11 o'clock at night, and we just did our show, and she's doing this. It was weird, but I was like, okay. So I wrote on the back of somebody's receipt my address and phone number. Went home, and then the phone rings at like 7 o'clock in the morning. And this is in the days of answering machines. And the thing goes beep, and I hear, baby, it's me, it's Liza. I'm right outside your door.
You never threw away that tape, right?
I might have it still. So I'm like sleeping. What? She says, yeah, I'm right outside your door. What are you doing? And I said, well, she said, let's go for a drive. I was like, okay. So put on a hat and put my down jacket, and I go outside my apartment, and I run down the stairs, and there's this limousine, and the doors open, and she's in head to toe lavender cashmere, which I will never forget.
Of course.
Wow.
And she swings the door open, and she goes, baby, get in. We're going for a ride.
This is something out of a movie, Cortés.
Really?
This is ridiculous.
I know. It really was. It really was. And I got inside her car, and we drove down. This was like the beginning of December. And I only know because all the lights down Fifth Avenue were on. And she said, let's go to Rockefeller Center. Anyway, so we're in the back of her car, and she had one of those yellow boom boxes. Remember boom boxes, but those yellow ones.
The yellow one, right.
Right. She always had those. And she goes, do you know who Kay Thompson was? And I said, no. And she's telling me all about Kay. Well, Eloise and the music. She starts playing the music of Kay and the Williams Brothers.
Oh.
And I'm in the back of this car now hearing these parts and these arrangements that, to me, in my mind, were so reckless and brave and just nutty. And like, she would do rhythm changes and key changes that were just random out of nowhere, just like boom, 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 like really fun, crazy stuff. And I was just like, my eyes were just like that, and my ears were huge.
Wow.
And we got to be very good friends. So
That's amazing. How did it lead to Elton? Like what?
So the Elton thing was, anyway, my group, the Tonics. Then the following spring, we did we went to, Daisy had us over at, this is leading to Elton. Daisy went and said, I want you guys to come and sing at my parents' Christmas party.
It's a big deal.
What?
His party was a big deal, right?
We didn't know that at the time at all. We were just like, okay, sure, let's go. So they gave us the address, and we go, and it's this beautiful townhouse. When I say it's a beautiful townhouse, it's like Auntie May in Beautiful Townhouse, where the banister is lit, and the chandelier has lights, and there's mistletoe everywhere, and glitter, and it's just like everyone is in black tie, and they're in gowns, and they've got a guy in their townhouse taking your coat, and people walking around with their hors d'oeuvres. I mean, it is schmancy, beautiful, glammy New York, exactly like a movie.
Oh.
And we were there like with our little black suits on from American Rag that just like that barely fit, that's trying to like be like, what, how How did we get here? Anyway, we go up the stairs to where the piano is. And there's Liza and Linda Lavin and Ben Gazzara and Lauren Bacall. And, all of Patti LuPone is there and Bernadette.
Ah!
All these people are there. And we're just like, hi, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. and then Daisy says, I want my friends to sing. So, okay. So we get Jason at the piano and we sang. We ended up almost doing our entire show, basically. And everybody's sitting on the floor. At this thing, and we're out on this beautiful piano, and we were just like singing and singing and singing and singing all night long. And at the end of the night, Steve Sondheim comes up to me and he says, "Listen, I don't know if you guys are up for something like this, but they're doing another one of those godforsaken benefits for me, and they're insufferable. But we really could use a group, and we can't get Boys to Men, and we can't get Manhattan Transfer. And if you guys are interested, would you be willing to do this?" And we're like, yeah. Okay, sure. He says, okay, well, I'll have my people call your people. And I go, we don't have people. We are the people.
My number, please just call that.
We are the people. So he says, I'll give you a list of songs that are available and you can pick what you want and do whatever you want to it. And we'll be off to the races. So that's what led to the Carnegie Hall thing. But that group, my group, the Tonics at the time, over time, we were getting some traction in these kinds of benefit fancy things. And the thing with Elton John was, I think it might have been an Amphar benefit that we were invited to sing at. I think it was Elton, Bette Midler, and Melissa Manchester, a bunch of people, and us. Melissa Manchester was a sweetheart, by the way.
Oh, is she? That's so good to hear.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. But that was the Elton John thing.
Amazing. It's so crazy how it just showing up, right? You never know what'll happen. Just show up.
I mean, you really don't. That's exactly what it is. You just like, I've always been that way as far as like my career goes. Like I've never really made a plan. I've just kind of thought, let's just don't say no and just see what happens. When after Marilyn closed, I remember I was at Minskoff for another audition it was like my 38th callback for Merrily We Roll Along, or I think it was, and
another flop.
Another one, I know, which Daisy actually was in, by the way. But,
Right.
Bjork Lee came out and said, you want to audition for a chorus line? You're perfect for one of the parts. We need you. And I was like, sure. So,
Why not?
I ended up not getting it because I blew it so badly. I was such a chronic overachiever at that time that if I could go back and fix that, I would. But it was my favorite show at the time. And anyway, it was very sweet of her to even think of me. But
Bjork is incredible. I've auditioned for her before for chorus line, and and it's like a masterclass. Like I don't even care about the auditioning. I just want to sit there and listen to her because her energy and what she brings to the room, even just teaching the combo, is so overwhelming when you're in the presence, right?
I felt too. That's how I felt, and I didn't have the presence of mind at that time to do less. You know what I mean? Like I always thought, I mean, I was 20 years old at the time, 22. And I just like, remember thinking like, first you line up and all you have to do is a double pirouette, right?
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, because I was a turner at the time. And I was like, I'm going to give him 3. I'm going to give him 3. And I tried to do and of course I stumbled out of my 3 pirouettes trying to do 3. And I was just like, I should have just done my fucking 2 pirouettes and shut up. But I was like, there goes that.
That was the first lesson that Jane Lanier ever taught me. She was like, if they ask for 2, you give them 2. And I was like,
yeah.
Okay, Jane.
I didn't know that. I know.
Well, I'm going to go off script here. We didn't approve this question, but I think that this would be insightful to answer. As a young person, a lot of young people, not a lot of them, but young people are lucky enough to get into a Broadway show, but not every Broadway show succeeds. Sometimes they end up like Wicked. Sometimes they end up like Marilyn. If you had to give advice to a young actor who ends up in an experience like Marilyn, instead of being down about it, because obviously you've crafted an illustrious career in the industry since that moment, what would your advice to a young performer, kind of with that in their face, like of how to move past that? You know what I mean? Because some people might be like, I'm getting on the bus back to Ohio and this is it, you know?
I would probably say that's a tricky question, because, you know, young people tend to feel immune to a lot of things. So
Right.
I would probably say this doesn't have to define you.
Right.
This is just one out of a bazillion other opportunities that you're going to get. So it's not the end of the world for you, and stay diversified. That's what I would probably say.
That's great advice. I love that. It doesn't have to define you.
No, I think it's a little different for, like, I think it was, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. I think it was, might have been harder for someone like Jerry,
Right.
because that role did define her at that time. I mean, it was that when you are the title character of something like that, and then have something like that happen to you where you get fired at the 11 o'clock hour, that's a tough one to bounce back from. You know what I mean? It's not like you're like a guy in the ensemble who's it's his first time out. When it's your first time out and you are given the big wand to carry, you know what I mean? And then somebody takes it away from you. You just really see what you can do with it. That's a harder one to bounce back from.
Yeah,
Sure.
you feel taken out at the
But
knee.
you know, that's what this business is. I mean, you know this. It's all about how resilient you can be, and I think if you just keep your eye, if you can keep your eye on the task of doing the thing that you do, all of the rest of it is noise. This is something that Liza taught me that I think is really, really valuable. Because I asked her about this very similar thing one time. She was going through a period where there was a lot of extraneous crap going on with our show and in her personal life and all this kind of stuff. And I said to her, I said, you know, how, because she was always able to perform. The second we got on stage, she was always so clear-headed and so focused. And I asked her one time how she's able to do that. And she said, I see my life like I'm at the bow of a ship, at the very bow of a ship, moving forward. And all of that other stuff is just noise. It's just the wake beside me. And I'm just continually going forward. Like I was like this, and all that other stuff is just splashy, noisy stuff. And I really heard that. And I thought, that's it. If we just stay trained and stay ready and be ready for when the opportunity comes, because everyone will get an opportunity. If you're smart enough to recognize it,
right, and
smart enough to meet it when it comes, then you'll be ready.
I love that. That's so great.
That's really good.
Don't you think?
I do. I think that's such a beautiful image. It also brings up Titanic for me. But, you know, just like arms out, bringing on the world.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So wrapping it up a little bit, we've heard about all of these wonderful arrangements and things that you've gotten to do with your quartet. I know that you have an album out, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that so everyone can find you. Go find it on Spotify.
My album, it's called Swell. I made it 1,000 years ago, but it still is out there. And I actually listened to it a couple of weeks ago, and it still sounds pretty good. But I am getting ready to do some new music soon. So
well, now everybody knows
making myself sit at the piano.
I love that.
Yeah, I guess I better.
So good. See, you're staying production.
I'm so mad because we had live shows booked too. We had shows booked at Vibrato in March, but then the COVID came and knocked that out. So
yeah.
But I'm really looking forward to doing those again. Those are really a lot of fun. With Melissa Bailey and Marissa Roberts, my Swell girls, to sing with me. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, Cortés, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This was such a special treat that I don't think either of us were expecting to even do. But like when we decided to do it, I don't even think either of us were like, I don't know. I researched you, and there's so much that you told us tonight that I didn't even know. So like, this is so cool.
Excuse me. There's plenty more, but I won't bore you.
Oh my God. Well, no, you won't bore us, but we just worry about the viewers. We are almost at an hour. When we were talking about this, like, it might be 30, 45 minutes. People, I don't know. People might not be into this, but I think this has been really special. And I couldn't think of a better way to start something like this, which I think Kristina, we might be stuck doing this.
Yeah.
from now on, unfortunately.
Cortés hit it out of the park. We've got a bar set. We gotta need it now.
Thank you. Okay, now then I'm going to send you my resume, which looks like nothing. So
Don't worry, I got it. I'll fix it.
All right. You guys, thank you so much for having me. It was really a lot of fun.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
All righty.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That
That
was-
was our first one.
That was so incredibly special. I don't know, for anyone who's watching, I know we had Melissa and Jennifer who've both commented throughout the conversation, but for anybody else out there, this is the magic that Broadway flops can bring people. This is why.
Together.
Which one?
Flops bring people together.
They do. I mean, I think so. I've always thought so. That's why I'm obsessed with them. Well, I think we should sign off, right?
Yeah, thank you all for joining us today. We're so excited that you decided to join us, even if you're watching it retrospectively. We forgive you.
If you haven't checked out My Favorite Flop, the podcast, it's available everywhere you listen to podcasts: Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher. All of them. Google us. We come up in the Google search results. And if you like us, please subscribe on Apple Podcast. If you really like us, you could write us a 5-star review. We have episodes come out every 2 weeks. So we released a week ago today, which means we have a brand new episode coming out next Tuesday, January 19th.
Yes, we're so excited. Please go find us on all the socials. We're on the Facebook, the Insta, the Twitterverse, the YouTubing, and now we're Twitch streaming, which is very exciting. That's where you can find this every other Tuesday. So on the off weeks of the podcast. Please join us again for After the Bows on the 26th, where we will be talking to some people connected to the show that we haven't announced yet. We're very excited about it.
Right.
Cortés Alexander, thank you so much. We love you. It was so special having you. And thank you all for tuning in.
Bye. See you guys soon.
Stay safe out there.